So when you open this, you're going to find, when you open these up, so there is going to be a little bit of oil on it. That is completely normal. You can see that that's quite wet on the inside. That's absolutely normal because these blades, you can keep them for years and years and years and years. And having the oil in them just makes them, the longevity last that little bit longer. But the problem with that is when you do come to use them, occasionally you've got a little bit of oil that you need to wipe off. Now, these ones are really good because they've got this little paper sleeve in there separating your blades. So you can see I've got this little sleeve there, and that then separates your blades across. So, oh, hang on. There we go. So I then put that one back. So I've now, and I also then do something differently, which I'll show you now. So when you wanted to change your blade, you're going to first of all make sure you're being very careful. Pay lots of attention. No screaming people in the background. Make sure that everything's off and you're only focusing on this. So you take the screw off, you take the nut off, and you take this off. Oh, and there we go. Blade has popped out. Now, can you tell that that's got a ring of dirtiness around there? Little bits of lint. That's quite normal. Don't worry, that's absolutely fine. Now, when you get your rotary cutter like this, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of fabric. I try and get a little thin piece of fabric like this. A bit of old selvage works well. And I just go in there and I try and get rid of all these little bits of fluff in here. And I know you just, I go through and I give it a nice little blow as well, get rid of everything. And you just give it a bit of a clean because you're using these every day. And there are little bits of oil in here that you are going to end up just, you can see just in that, you can see that's got all bits of gunk in it. That is completely normal. There's nothing wrong with your cleaning regime. You do not need to feel bad in any way. That is completely normal. Don't worry. And if it's not, mine is as well. So don't worry. You're in a good company. I also then just take this and fold this a couple of times to go through and just get rid of any little bits that I haven't been able to get. And I just do that just to get rid of bits of fluff and bits that are in there. Right. At this point, I pick up my blade using this lovely little piece of, oh, I'm out of screen. So I pick my blade up using this little piece of paper. You can see I've got that piece of paper there. I then put my finger on the middle of this. Now, you've just got to make sure you're being safe on this. However you want to do it, just make sure you're being safe. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that way. I'm just going to pull the paper off. I should have pulled the paper off before I did this. There you go. So you can see you're just getting rid of the paper there. Now, all of us are going to have that happen. You take this to the edge of the table, you hold it, and you get it a little bit off the table. And then when you're grabbing it, you're not grabbing it on the blade, the sharp bit of the blade, you're doing that. So then I've just popped that back in there. Now, that is safe for the minute. What I'm going to do now is I know that that bit there goes onto the top here. Now notice that this has got that lovely guard on the edge there. So all I've done is I've just made sure that I put the blade in, I put that through, I then take my little nut, and then I take that and I put that on and I tighten that up. Now every rotary cutter is different. You do it how you like. Now I put this to one side. Now watch what I'm doing here. This is important. I'm now taking my empty blade. I've put the little piece of paper on the top of it. Now there are two things you can do with this. If you have a sharp spin, you then take this and put this in your sharp spin and you get rid of it. If, like me, you don't have a sharp spin, when you've used these up, what I do with this is, because it's so obvious once you've got a blade that's been used, you can tell it's dirty, I pop that into the, oh goodness me, sorry, I'm just going to do this and not talk for a second. There we go. So all I'm doing there is I'm putting the dead one on the top, and then I get a Sharpie or something and I write 2 on there, knowing that I've got 2 that are new and one that isn't, because there are always going to be 3 in them. And then once you emptied one, that's your dead bin, and you just write dead on it, and then those are your dead blades. The reason that's important is because if you don't have a sharps bin, don't put this in your rubbish bin. Wrap it up in paper, but even wrapping it up in paper, it can be quite dangerous. So please, these are really, really sharp, especially if you've got kids. Make sure you're looking after yourselves that way. These are one of those little forgotten things that people just put them in the rubbish bin and then don't realize why there's a massive hole in their bin. So that's a great way of doing that. And then once you've done this, the next thing I would say is for the first few cuts that you do, goodness me, look at that. So all I'm doing now is, and you literally just take a dead bit of selvage and you just keep doing this. And I always do this. I get a dead piece of fabric that I'm not going to use and I cut a lot up in one go. It's very good as well if you've had a really bad day. You just cut little things up and do that. The reason being is that any oil that's now on the outside of your blade is going to come off on this fabric rather than when you cut your Liberty up, and we don't want you damaging your good fabric. So that's a really, that's my top tip on changing your blades.